Among Christian churches in Nigeria, the Church of the Brethren, or Ecclesia Yanawa Nigeria as it's referred to, has always had a distinct perspective on how to express faith. The growth of EYN has happened alongside the establishment of hospitals, schools, the digging of wells, and offering a rural health program for people in the communities of the churches, one that tries to meet the needs of all people. It's been a challenge holding all that together over the past 90 years or so since the church was founded, but EYN has strived to be faithful to the gospel as understood and explained by the early missionaries from America. Now EYN is facing a new challenge, one that confronts one of the basic tenets of its faith, the belief that Christians should not return evil for evil, and instead should follow Jesus' words to overcome evil with good.
We are following the teaching of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, especially the Church of Brethren, EYN in Nigeria. We are pacifist. In spite of all these burnings, we are still maintaining that we should be people of peace.
Right now, it's the biggest single issue facing the Brethren in Nigeria, a country where Christians have been targeted off and on over the past decade by extremists in the Muslim faith, a people with whom they used to live alongside peacefully.
People are afraid of coming to worship, so people are not sure whether they will live in some of those crisis areas or to go to their home villages. Their houses are being abolished and their sources of income is being destroyed.
Centuries-old tribal conflicts and modern-day economic inequities in Nigerian society, as well as the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in the early part of the last decade, have all resulted in attacks on Christian churches recently, including EYN churches and members. Among them, the EYN church in the northern city of Maiduguri. The church was burned and some church members were killed.
It was a very shocking news to us, and not only us, but the entire Church of the Brethren in Nigeria, because it's one of our largest congregations.
The church in Maiduguri is currently being rebuilt, but other churches have been burned as well, and pastors and church members killed. In many places, especially in the city of Jos, Christians have retaliated, burning mosques and killing Muslims. Hundreds of people were killed during fighting in 2008 alone.
It has affected EYN members in their places of business, in their homes, and even killing. We have lost some people even in Jos. We have lost evangelists in Jos. We have lost members, and several of our members have lost their homes.
Some of the Muslims, they are not happy about what is happening actually, but some of them, they will only say it in their mouth, but inside there is something, because the teaching that they are receiving in these days is different from the one that they are receiving in the past. That is actually what is causing all this problem that we are facing these days.
For the most part, EYN pastors and members have not been part of the retaliation, although some, especially the young, are growing impatient.
What is actually facing us now, the challenges of crisis, destruction of lives and properties, especially burning of our churches. And you see, especially young people asking us, you say when you are slapped, you turn the other cheek. But if both cheeks have been slapped, why do we turn to? So these are the questions we are facing, especially from the youth.
Nobody tried to stop them.
In April 2011, anger with the election of a Christian president led Muslim youth to storm the EYN church compound in the small village of Kwaya Kusar, burning it to the ground, along with the pastor's office, other buildings, even the small shed where corn was stored. The church's nearby school was also damaged.
Not less than 300 youth and some older men, and they begin from attacking churches, first of all, then they move from house to house, and they burned some of our members' houses. Most of our members ran to the bush, they slept in the bush, and some also slept on trees. And then after a day, they come back, and some people even ran away to their hometown, and they begin to come back gradually.
However, Pastor Bulis Danlani insisted that none of his church members retaliated against the Muslims who were responsible.
Because Jesus Christ has come to tell us the love of God to everyone, and that we try to show them that love.
It was a similar story in the small, overwhelmingly Christian town of Michika, where election-related violence also led to roving bands of Muslim youth who burned shops and cars, targeting only those of Christians. But the church's pastor, who was head of the local Christian Ecumenical Council in Michigan at the time, turned away a group of several thousand angry Christian youth who had gathered the next morning wanting to burn down Muslim-owned shops in response.
People were angry with me personally. They were so annoyed, saying that, oh, is this how you pastors are cheating us? You are making, will you see that Christian shops were burnt? About properties of 240 million were lost. About 200 shops were burnt, and entirely they were all Christians shops that were burnt down.
But as EYN church leaders grapple with how to reconcile their peace tradition with a culture very much like that in America, which preaches retaliation and peace through strength, they're finding the Christian community in Nigeria is looking to them to provide alternatives to the cycle of violence.
We have to be at peace with one another, and because that's the only way Christ has taught us. Even though Muslims are aggressively trying to tempt Christians to be aggressive like them, but aggression can never be the best way to live. So the best alternative is to have peace.
The focus of EYN's peace work is at the EYN headquarters near Kwahi, home also to Cult Bible College, where Nate and Jen Hosler just completed 2 years as consultants from the U.S. Church.
There's a high level of receptivity, especially within the present leadership. They're very interested in kind of building on or extending the historic peace emphasis of the Church of the Brethren.
The Hoslers have found that peacemaking in Nigeria goes much further than simply deciding whether or not to participate in violence. Many church members here want to build bridges with their Muslim neighbors in areas of the country where that is still possible. In the nearby town of Mubi, which has not experienced the kind of serious fighting that has occurred in places like Maiduguri or Jos, an effort began to invite Christian pastors and Muslim imams to meet regularly through a project called Christians and Muslims for Peace-Building Initiatives, or CAMPI.
An interfaith dialogue group bringing imams and pastors together to receive some basic training on conflict resolution skills. When they have relationships, if there's a crisis, one leader can talk to the other, hold your youth back, or let's talk about this, let's deal with this problem, tell your youth not to retaliate, and we'll tell our youth not to retaliate. Or they can also just work with people before something escalates to such a problem.
Well, I have a lot of hopes for this meeting because of the impact which this meeting has brought to the entire community of Mubi. People are becoming aware on how they can live together despite differences in religion.
This meeting, he says, will bring peaceful coexistence by the grace of God, and people will understand each other.
I'm very happy with the programs because it shows that there is so many interactions between Muslims and Christians. It resolves the crisis and the conflicts will be reduced. That programs.
The Hoslers also help students at Cult Bible College confront issues of peacemaking in the classroom, help set up the EYN Peace Resource Library with books available for students to use in their classes, and helped arrange a peace club, which at times travels to local EYN churches and makes presentations, like this drama at one of the EYN churches in Mubi on the benefits of cooperation in building peace.
The message of the drama is to give people awareness on cooperation, that corporations will bring the build up of the people.
They also developed curriculums to help church members consider what can be done for peace, especially ways to build bridges with those from other faiths.
Within the churches, when people think of peace, they look to EYN as the peace church, and so having this curriculum develop is really an important part to strengthen EYN's position as a peace church, and her role as being able to witness and encourage the other Christian bodies in Nigeria.
Bridges between the two faiths can be built on several different levels. In the city of Jos, EYN church leader Markus is working with an effort to bring both Muslim and Christian victims of the recent violence together to provide job training and then small loans to start businesses.
The idea is to share the love and to share ideas of being in business together. That is the idea. And that whosoever accepts to be beneficiary of this micro loan, automatically he is a peace advocate. That is number one rule by the committee. Because we are going to have a monthly meeting. You will bring report of how you are progressing in your business, number one, and how you are progressing in talking to your community about the peace on the plateau.
This man, a Muslim, saw his car burned during the rioting. He's now being trained as an iron worker and hopes to open his own shop. This woman, a Christian, saw her house ransacked and burned. She'll use her loan to open a new sewing shop.
We look at this program as a sort of bridge that is built between the two faiths. And with the bridge, we will be able to visit each other. We will be able to understand each other. It tells our followers that, yes, there is hope for us to be together. And that will now create trust in the minds of people seeing us together.
If you can bring such people together and they can sit and interact with one another and then forgive one another and then work together, then we can make a little contribution towards peace building.
Building that bridge can be risky. One of the committee members is a prominent Muslim school administrator in Jos.
From the Muslim side, if they see me belonging to this kind of organization, maybe their first thinking is that, what is wrong with this person? Why is he going closer to our enemies? This firstly what will happen. But I believe that is nothing, and we are in a position to give people good understanding that we have to live together. Even the religion itself, this is what the religion taught us.
Yunus's Muslim school was destroyed twice by rampaging Christians during the rioting in Jos and is now located in an area where there's insufficient water available. Markus dreams of being able to provide a well for the school as a gift from EYN Christians.
EYN is really known for that. EYN is really known for that. In fact, even the government of the state is aware of the role EYN is playing in providing these amenities, of which, of course, promotes peaceful coexistence between the Christians and the Muslims.
In a rural village near Michika, Church of the Brethren funds from the U.S. are underwriting 2 well-digging projects in a Muslim village of the nomadic Fulani tribe, where there's not a sufficient reliable source of water.
Today, I was really surprised that an old man among the Fulani people said, there's no Muslim that will give us this love. He mentioned that. I was really touched. He said there's no Muslim man will give us such a love.
Offering that love is more difficult in the face of persecution, but the Nigerian church knows it has a unique calling these days. In the aftermath of the 2001 rioting in Jos, EYN pastor Anthony Dumsai came upon 2 Muslim boys being held, beaten, and about to be killed by a group of Christians on the grounds of the Theological College of Northern Nigeria, where many EYN students are enrolled. The pastor intervened and saved the boys from the angry mob, which was prepared to avenge the deaths of fellow Christians.
I am the other person, 2 of us, protected the boys, and said, no, this will not happen on Tizianan ground. This is a religious place. This place belongs to the church. What message will we convey to the world that we are Christ followers if we kill these innocent little boys?
For the brethren, we have been saying, I think we cannot be the same with the other churches. We want to be unique in Nigeria by actually cultivating our peace heritage. And that's why we are trying to promote this idea of peace within the church itself.
Despite the violence that crops up throughout northern Nigeria, there are signs of hope. Not long ago, about a dozen radical Muslims associated with the terrorist group Boko Haram, which is responsible for many of the bombings in Nigeria, wanted to preach in this mosque just up the road from the EYN headquarters. But they were essentially ordered out of the area by more moderate Muslims who had a relationship with the Christian community.
The local leaders, both Christians and Muslims, came together, ended up gathering up these more radical elements, and sent them to the local ruler, the Emir of Mubi. He who is supposed to regulate the preaching and what happens in the area said, we don't want you here, basically go away, and sent them away. In this case, it was a good example of people across the spectrum working together within some of the traditional ruler and cultural, say, specifics to address a pretty significant risk.
And they left. And up to today, no Boko Haram again in Maraba, in such a group in the name of preaching.
It is a dominating issue among Christians in Nigeria now. Wherever you meet 2, 3, 4 people, the issue at stake is always how are we going to restore peace between us and the Muslims. Because nobody is happy Nobody is comfortable.
It's an ongoing challenge for the EYN Church, one that requires a different approach in different regions of the country. In the larger cities where widespread violence has led to distrust and virtual segregation of each faith's population, the need is for reconciliation. In smaller cities and villages where there's been relative calm, the emphasis is on preventing violence by building bridges between peoples. But in all cases, seeking to be faithful to Christ's call to live peaceably among all.
As Christians, we would say our faith inspires hope in us to work for things that do not seem particularly evident or possible at the time. That it gives us strength. We can trust that it's not just us coming up with nice ideas and good programs, but we trust that God is working through us and in us and in the broader community to bring peace where it seems like there's very little peace sometimes.
My hope for the future, as a Christian, first of all, try to pray so that God will make sure that we live in peace despite our differences in creeds, in our confession. I hope that in the future we will understand each other so that we can live in peace with our Muslim brothers and sisters. That's my hope.
EYN as a church is trying to make that happen, drawing on the long-held belief by many Nigerian brethren that Jesus' words, first taught to them by missionaries under this tree in the village of Garkita in the 1920s, can continue to shape their response to a much different world in which they find themselves some 90 years later.